responded, and we used the, I'm actually a longtime friend of the guy who runs the New York Federation, and we agreed that you can make the same case by looking at census data, that we're on both, Asians are on both ends of the spectrum. And I think that when you have a single example, one or two examples of places where people need help, I mean, the example of the Asian elderly women having the highest suicide rate of all the groups in the country, all ethnic and racial groups, that cuts across economics. People who suffer from depression, they can be poor or rich, right? So it's important to find the examples and then make sure that people understand the impact of what you're talking about. And the other, of course, that I didn't mention is that when we found a problem, we worked very hard to create a solution to it. Because you want people to believe and trust that not only do you know something about the problems, but you're doing something about it. You're not just publishing reports. So we ended up producing a video, and it was the project that we took to this angel donor that I mentioned, the high maintenance. She happened to be interested in healthcare. And I said, hey, you know, are you interested in this? She wanted to do something that was a get-acquainted grant. And we purposely got two kind of sterling partners for us because we have no name recognition, right? So we got the Stanford Geriatric Education Center to come in with us as advisors and AARP. And so and then Amy Tan agreed to be interviewed, and she's got a pretty long history of mental health problems in her family. So it was the kind of product that you could drop a few names and talk about it, but it was not, we saw the problem. And by the way, we didn't discover this problem. We just gave it visibility. It had been reported before. And then we did something about it. So I think that, you know, taking an action on a problem can be very important. Can I just add one other thing too? There's a, Asian American Federation is also Pan-Asian in New York, and there's a new Korean community foundation, and I met with them this past summer. And the gal who's the current ED at the Korean group is married to a Chinese guy who's on the board of the Asian American Federation. And apparently they have their own pillow talk about who's more successful at fundraising. And he is very jealous of her because she has been able to mobilize a Korean community in a way that the Asian Federation has not. And so I think that that could be your opening, that people might not care so much about the issue if they just have a place to be with their own community and feel that the money is being directed to the community they really care about.
So I think we have one more question back here.
Yeah, I had a question regarding, I think you and also Tala mentioned about how organizations need to start, that it doesn't happen over 5 years or 10 years, that you need to look at the long term. And I was wondering what kind of outreach programs that you had for the youth and getting younger leaders involved to kind of, when the next generation that you leave things off to, that they're able to take off and run with it. Because I think a lot of times people get stuck into doing what's, you know, let's just build now, but there's this gap that is not being established, and usually the younger generation seems to be less interested, if you will, in getting involved, especially in foundations like this. So has there been any outreach programs that you guys have set in place to reach the younger leaders to get them more involved, either on a volunteer or even on a donation level, even if it's $20 or so, right, just so they feel that it's their organization too, that they will follow up afterwards?
So we don't have a really strong record of that. We did two things that we thought were strategically smart for us. One was that there's a big Asian volunteer group on the peninsula in South Bay called Asian Americans for Community Outreach, and I'm told they have, I don't know, 800 people doing volunteer volleyball leagues or something, but it's like everybody's looking for a date. So it's and they all do these things together, and then they do a little $1 or $2 ticket surcharge, and then they give the money away. And we recruited them as volunteers for a very long time, 7 or 8 years, and they were good at recruiting volunteers. They'd show up with 10 or 15 people, they had their own supervisor stuff. After a while I thought, okay, we really need to get down to business here. Let's see if we can make them into donors. And I couldn't get a single one. I also caught one of them stealing wine from us out of the gala, so they're no longer donors. I mean, I think that I want to go back to this social entrepreneur thing. And probably, I'm also very old style. You know, I'm close to Medicare age now. And so it was very hard for me to figure out what was the best way to communicate with the younger generation and engage them. And I know from my own experience that I started really giving when I bought my first house, because I started itemizing deductions then, and you kind of pay a little bit more attention. I also grew up with a tradition of giving from my parents, but because I didn't have good luck in converting those volunteers, it worried me, it bothered me a lot. And I should say that I think, for me, it's a little embittering, because I think I look around and I see people take vacations, you know, they used to buy CDs at $20 a pop, you know. Why is it that we can't find $20 to give? And that is why I'm not a big fan of microfinance. Because I think that if you're working with a donor who thinks they need to get something back, other than the good feeling about helping someone else, it doesn't feel right to me. That's not what I signed up for. Because I think we all have a lot, and we have an ability to help others, and that's what we're trying to do with this work. All of the social entrepreneurs and the ideas, that's wonderful. Those people have a lot of money to invest. And you heard what Jeff Skoll could do, because he started with 10 million and it became $1 billion. You can be really smart with that kind of resource. What we're trying to do is build an institution that's going to last, that will also change the behavior of a lot of people, to really engage them and encourage them to give. Whether or not you can actually document the last, you know, piece of, you know, impact that you had, it's really trying to create a sense of sharing and giving to others.
So, Gail,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us.